Welcome to Season 2 of the Pivot Point podcast. This season, we are featuring candid conversations. We're interviewing industry experts and leaders about candid conversations they've had that involve gender in some way. They're going to fill us in on what happened, what prevented them from addressing it, the risks they took in that conversation, why they chose to say something and how they handled it, and what happened next. Stay tuned for Pivotal Stories, a Positive Change. We have John McDonald, who is the President, Chairman, and Chief Executive Officer of Clear Object, Indiana's leading Internet of Things systems integrator and Inc. Magazine's fastest growing IT services company in Indiana for 2014, 15, 16, and 17. Clear Object is the winner of the 2016 and 2017 Entrepreneur Magazine 360 and the 2016 and 17 Deloitte Fast 500 in Technology, and the 2016 and 17 CBN Next Gen 250. He is the chairman of the Technology and Innovation Council and board member of Indiana Chamber of Commerce, president of the Venture Club of Indiana, a board member of TechPoint, and a member of the IBM Partner World Global Business Partner Advisory Council, of the Advisory Council for Hamilton Southeastern Schools, and the Workforce Alignment Council of Ivy Tech, of the Industrial Advisory Council for Computer Information Technology, and the Dean's Council for the Purdue Polytechnic Institute at Purdue University. Wow, you're such an underachiever, John.
That needs to be edited down dramatically, but thank you for reading it all. That was very nice. My mother wrote that. So
long list of credentials here, a leader in tech, certainly one that's a diverse perspective and welcoming of gender in technology. John, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear your candid conversation.
Well, look, it's my great pleasure. And if anybody that knows me, I'm always direct and candid. So happy to share that with you today.
Great.
You know, as I was thinking about this today, I was drawn to several different stories that I could relate, but I think maybe the one that I want to share and most relevant is here at Clear Object. I have observed a behavior in some of our male executives in the past that initially was like an off note to me. And then as I got to thinking a little bit more about it, I had to kind of figure out why I felt that way and then more about what I was going to do about it. And to put it succinctly, I've observed from time to time certain male executives in our company who will cultivate relationships with primarily young, early career females. And I don't mean romantic relationships. I mean, personal relationships that provide a degree of interest in the young women's careers that is higher than their average peer, either women who are older or men. It's like they sort of circle in on the young, maybe naive women in the organization and spend extra time, take extra interest, walk through things a little bit more, answer questions, take them to lunch, take them to breakfast, so on and so on and so on. And on the surface, it's like, oh, well, that's nice. That's somebody as an executive that's just taking an interest in a young woman's early career, right? How could that be bad? But then what unfortunately tends to occur is that you start to wonder, well, what's the motivation for that, right? Why that person instead of that person, right? And what sometimes happens is you realize, or I did anyway, that the person's really cultivating a posse of people around them, that they are actually seeking to bolster their own ego by having a group of young, perhaps naive, but certainly eager and interested young women who care much more deeply about what it is that they're doing from day to day than the average employee does, right? And that's the off note, right? That it's, oh, you're really doing this not because you actually care, right, about that person's career more than this other person. It's because it makes you feel better in your ego that you have all of these young females who care about you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, there's a damage that occurs to the young female, and that is they get an outsized view of their importance then in the organization, because here we have this powerful executive in the company who is taking an interest in me over everybody else. That must make me better or more special than anyone else. Mm-hmm. And while that in fact may be true, right, they may in fact be better or more special than everyone else, it's not because necessarily this particular guy is taking an interest in you. And so you get a bent sense of self-worth and importance based on what you want to believe is the merits and your skill and your intelligence and your ability, but may in fact not be those things. Mm-hmm. Right. And then when that executive departs or moves on or is reassigned or whatever, you're left with damage in the wake of that, because now suddenly you're not as important to your new boss. Why? It must be something that I did wrong. I'm not as smart anymore. I'm not as intelligent anymore. Right. Or you get ones that are like, I want to be transferred so that I can be a part of that person's organization. Or if they leave, then they want to quit and go follow that person to the other organization because they cared about me more than anybody else did, right? And so you get this sort of warping of the office relationship as a result of the behavior that initially doesn't necessarily seem to be bad, but in fact really kind of is.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've seen, unfortunately. And it's a challenging thing to draw that line or to walk that line between wanting to care about the advancement of young women, particularly in an industry, technology, which is not well known for this, and, then turning that into an ego booster for you, that they care about you and you care about them. So it's very difficult. Very difficult.
Well, at first, it seems like allyship, what I would call a man being an ally, reaching out to women to be mentors, advocates, sponsors of their career. It sounds all good. Great intention, probably initially. But I think where it becomes a problem, John, as you articulated, is this kind of when it becomes a group of young women that are kind of herding around this male.
Yes. Yeah, I think that was the marker. If it was one person, I might be looking at it differently. Or, if it was generally considered that, we should be paying special attention to this person for whatever reason, they're challenged in the workplace or they have a special skill or whatever. But when it becomes like a group, that's when it's like, right. Then it's when you start scratching your head and you go, well, that's interesting. And oftentimes that's a kind of perhaps a marker of a problem.
Yeah. I often in my teamwork, leadership work that I do, playing by a different set of rules, different people having different rules is always a problem in an organization. And this seems like a great example of that. Because as a young man, I would be asking, well, where's my tribe? Where's my mentor?
Yes.
Usually it's the opposite, that older senior men tend to mentor young men that resemble their younger selves. So it's quite opposite of what you usually see, where usually young women don't have access to these types of mentors. And if they do, they look to executive women, which there's usually one or two, and they're getting ambushed by all these requests to be mentored or sponsored. So great example of that pendulum and what is too much.
Very challenging to navigate, that's for sure.
So as somebody that's been a leader, built your own business, went through scaling it up, and now advocating for diversity and technology in our community, I'm curious, John, how have you been able to scale and keep focus on diversity? And then what also do you see as key drivers for diversity in our community going forward in tech?
Those are two great questions. First, the first one, I tell people all the time that as the CEO of a tech company, I really only have 3 jobs. Job 1 is raising money. It's a venture-backed startup, so that's job 1. Job 2 is hiring people that are better than me at everything. And job 3 is keeping them. Now, obviously, they obviously lead to one another. You raise money so you can hire people, and once you hire people, you want to keep them, right? But the progression is very logical and I obviously have tools that help me with all 3 of those tasks, right? But it's that second one, hiring people that are better than me at everything, which is probably the most challenging statement for a lot of leaders, because the tendency for people is to want to hire people that are less than them, right? So that they can control them or manage them or delegate to them, and they'll just do the work like a robot or something. The reality, though, is that if I am able to hire people that are better than me at everything, and when I start the company, I have to do everything, right? I'm the chief sales rep, I'm the chief developer, I'm the chief cook, the chief, trash can emptier, right? I do everything, right? But if I can hire people that are better than me at everything and give away all the jobs, I don't have to do anything, right? Because the people that are all doing this are better than me at it, right? My director of finance, she's much better at managing the books than I will ever be. My director of marketing she's much better at doing marketing than I will ever be. The woman I have in charge of doing design thinking is way better at that. Like, if I can give away all those jobs to those people and they're better than me at it, then the company is better off for it, and I don't have to do anything. And that allows me to work in job 3, which is to keep them. Right. And so when you're in that zone, that's like heaven, because as a leader, then your job is only about culture and accountability and vision, right? And trying to make sure that everybody is focused and has what they need to be able to do their best.
Yeah.
So to me, diversity is not just about we need to have so many of this and so many of that, so many of that. No, diversity is we need to have the best people on the planet who are willing to work for us, who are better than this at everybody else, right? Without regard to any factor, right? And not just gender, but education level, geography. If that's something you're blessed to be able to do, it doesn't matter to me. So it's about making sure that we have the best that there is, right? And so for me, I just don't know how you can build a successful company if that isn't your approach. Like, if you're trying to find everybody that's less than you, I don't know how you're going to ever succeed. So
back to that ego problem.
Right. And so then to your second half of the question, what should we be focused on, right, in the tech business? So, I have 2 sons and a daughter who have been going through the school system as well. And I've thought very carefully about, and asked a lot of questions of them, because I don't want to lead them into the tech business themselves. Just like I don't think an actress or an actor would want to necessarily lead their own kids into acting or as well. I don't necessarily want to drive the equation for them. I want them to choose their own pathway. But I am often asking them questions, and I'm curious about their perceptions of the technology business from a career perspective, right? Just kind of testing the question at home. And one of the challenges I think we have in the tech business is that there's a perception among a lot of women today, or young ladies today, that software development, in particular coding, is a task for primarily young boys, and particularly young boys that like gaming. And like, if you're a gamer, like, being in software is like, yes, again, it's a very natural. But if you're not, so my point in saying this is, I think what we're missing is we're failing to draw the lines clearly in the minds of young people as to the socially and globally relevant jobs that really move the needle from a societal perspective that just so happen to be technology jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're not making necessarily the right connection in their heads that being in technology is not just about coding, right? It's about autonomous vehicles. It's about power and water distribution to different parts of the planet. It's about providing good paying jobs to people in manufacturing all over the world. There's all kinds of parts of the tech business that in fact move the needle on the planet.
Yeah.
It's not just about coding, right? And I think we need to, and it's not STEM, if you will. It's everything is now STEM, right? It's not
the future of the world.
Yes, the future of the world is this, right? And it's not just about science for science sake. It's about everything we do now has technology baked into it. So being a technologist is not about just being some separate kind of weird person that likes to game and code all the time. It's about being any job now is a technology job. And I think we need to realign those words, right, with people so that they don't see it as something separate or different, but something that's just a part of every job going forward. Yeah. Does that make any sense?
Oh, absolutely. It reminds me of Girls Who Code. That book, although written for middle school age girls, really helps them see how tech is everywhere. It's not just video games, but it's applications. It's how you just solve problems and make decisions. It's everywhere. So I like that bridge because the research shows that girls that don't game don't get exposed to it. And then if they
That's right.
to find it, they walk into a classroom full of all boys and they feel instantly intimidated. So
that's right. That's
absolutely.
right.
Well, John, this has been awesome. I value your time today, your perspective. Being a CEO focused on this and driving change in our community is a very, very special thing. And so I just want to thank you for all your efforts. And how can our listeners follow you? How can they continue to see your message?
Well, I'm on Twitter like everybody else, JPMCDON. Our marketing department is led by an awesome group of all females, which is cool. And they are really good at exposing me everywhere, probably overexposed. So if you follow anything coming out of clearobject.com, blogs and articles and the like, they are very, very good at sharing the word to our social media channels. So thanks for following me if you're interested in doing so.
We will be following you. Well, thanks, John. We've enjoyed having you on the show. We have Audrey Taylor with us today, who is the CEO of NetLogix. Audrey has a deep background in information technology and has leveraged this in her role as CEO. As CEO, her skills extend into the areas of client relationship management, sales, service delivery, and staff development. Her mission is to provide vision and strategy to solve complex business challenges for her clients and for her company. Welcome, Audrey.
Hi, Julie. Delighted to be here.
And she's got a bit of an accent as well.
I always feel everybody else has the accent.
That's, of course we do. So Audrey, we were chatting and kind of preparing for our interview today. You had a number of candid conversations around gender in the workplace and being a female business owner in the tech industry. Curious, what candid conversation would you like to share with our audience today?
So it goes back a little bit, so I would hope that some of the circumstances have changed. But when I was first going ahead and getting the business registered, so founded in 1998, but seeking women-owned business status in 2002, so 5 years into owning and operating the company with a company structure that had been 75% me owning it and 25% my husband owning it, I had some very challenging conversations with regards to how decisions would be made in a company that had a husband and wife arrangement, and the implications very heavily falling on the side that obviously a husband would trump the conversation, and therefore I couldn't really be the owner operator of this company. My frustration came from the fact that at that point in time, I had been running the company and was 5 years into that situation and had been the person engaged in developing, hiring, finding our partners, developing our relationships with outside trusted advisors, and being challenged on that front was very frustrating. It felt like we hadn't made the progress as women looking at organizations that I thought we should have made by that point in time.
Yeah. And I know you said you were asked kind of probing questions about, how can you really be the decision maker, and kind of questioning your own integrity, and how that's actually led to you overcoming that kind of, and strategically approaching conversations where you normally might get on the defensive, but now you have a more proactive approach.
Yes. So there's only so many things you can change, and you can only change yourself and your responses. So in hindsight, and hindsight took a while to come around, but I think this is a good message for us all to do. The onus was on me to demonstrate the control, because that's what I was asking for. I was asking to show that I ran the business. So it became important for me in going into all my conversations to have done as much preparation as I could to anticipate what I would be asked, and then be able to prepare to demonstrate how I was going to share that. So yes, I had been running the company for a long time, but I had gone into this conversation expecting my word to be my bond, and that's not how life works. So leveraging all the relationships I built, giving people the demonstrated evidence that they needed to see to show that I was in control of the organization and in control of the structure and was a decision maker, and allowing other people to amplify my voice and share that they too saw me as the leader of the organization. And that different mindset of approaching what is it that we both need to get out of this conversation? I need to get certification. They need to get clarification that they're certifying a legitimate business. The benefit of that is I really only want women-owned businesses to be certified as women-owned businesses. So I invested in the success of them asking probing questions. So it's my job to make sure that I can answer those questions in an effective manner with demonstrated evidence to support what I'm saying.
I like that, looking at both objectives and what's in common. And certainly you both have a vested interest in protecting the integrity of that process. So as someone that's also going through, hopefully getting certified very soon, it is an intense process.
Yes, it is. And I am very grateful for the fact that in this situation where we're 20 years into running the business, there are people far better able than me to prepare the documentation and fill in the forms than I ever was. That is not my area of focus and expertise, shall we say.
Me as well. So Audrey, building off of that, fast forwarding to today, 20 plus years later, managing a pretty impressive team, being a community leader, leading organizations like Women in High Tech, and getting awards for being, a strong female business owner. I'm curious, what has the journey been like? What is it? How have you been able to kind of scale and grow and also build amazing women leaders around you?
So the truth is, it took probably the first 10 years before I would actually say I was the CEO of the company. I inappropriately would call myself other titles that made me feel more comfortable about myself and where I was in the process. So really taking on personal development. I was a practitioner by trade in the verticals that we initially started in with NetLogic, so I could actually do the work. I could be the consultant. So moving from doing the work to managing a company that does the work was a big mental shift and has required, I've taken courses, I've had leadership development personally, and that journey has been what's taken me from there to here. And over the period of time, I've learned things about myself. I've learned that there are many reasons why I've had previous companies before I left and came to the United States, why I changed jobs frequently, that basically I like the thrill of taking a risk, which is something that I think most CEOs ultimately like to do. We do like to be challenged, and we like to push ourselves, and we like to take risks. And that's something you get to do when you're running a company. You're right, though, that I have taken my commitment to leveraging the fact that we are recognized as a woman-owned business, and then really trying to invest in what that means in the community. And I think if we make more diverse people part of our organizations, we produce better products for our clients. If we look like the people we're working with, we get better holistic solutions. But then also taking a commitment to where we spend our time and our talent. So investing in the women within the company. I'm proud to say we're majority woman staffed, and then a significant number of our leadership positions are all filled by women. And I invest in their training, I invest in their future, I send them out on the necessary things to help them grow in the best way that suits them. I take it very seriously. I also even take it seriously with who we spend money with. So where at all possible, I like to spend my money locally, and I like to spend it with small and diverse businesses when we're actually buying in services for NetLogics. So it's a true commitment to diversity. And within the company, we've talked about the fact that we're diverse by design, and we look at the entire, so age, gender, background, where you were raised, how you were educated, taking a whole look at that to create a much more well-rounded company. Because if we're going to solve problems for our clients, we're going to have to come at it with new and interesting ideas as those problems get more complicated. And I think a bigger team helps us do that.
Oh, that's terrific. Some great nuggets there of having a mindfulness for diversity as you're growing, not an afterthought after you're big. And then looking back, it's much harder to do.
Yeah.
A lot of our big companies are asking the question, like, we just can't seem to find the talent. Like, look around. If someone's going to interview for that position, they may not be inclined to feel welcomed. So building that diversity in as you grow and diversifying your suppliers, investing in yourself as a leader and building your confidence to step into that CEO role when you are ready. What's interesting, Audrey, is you're well aware of the research actually supports that women, and this is a generalization, but most of the times true, that we're actually more fit to lead. And what I mean by that is we take a collaborative approach, right? We're much more inclusive. We take on a necessary level of risk. We're not the most risky risk taker, but we're also not adverse. So we can kind of balance that risk. And some of the research that's coming out of Marshall Goldsmith just wrote a book with Sally Helgeson about how women rise that I just read, is actually women are favored as leaders to men, but there's just still so few of us out there. So, I think your journey is kind of showcasing some of these key pieces that women bring to the table, and hopefully more in the future. So along that vein, what will it take? Knowing the tech industry where you thrive is not the most diverse. There are very few female leaders, thus the questioning that you get from time to time. What do you see for the future? What will it take to get more women there?
I think what's going to actually happen is necessity is always the mother of invention. So what's actually going to happen is we're running into talent shortages. So because there are actual talent shortages, people are willing to look at people who look different to themselves, and then they're actually willing to look at different sources for staff. Here at NetLogics, we've worked hard to have an intern program that focuses on bringing in a wide range of students. So we've worked with organizations in town to make sure that we get more diverse candidates into that intern pool. There are amazing colleges and universities here in Indiana, but if we just go to the same colleges, we're going to probably get the same kind of students. So if we're going to talk to, so we've been working with Ivy Tech, we've been working with Dress for Success, we've been working with the Latino Institute, and we've had interns from all those programs, and also people coming in through those gates to provide us with more access to more diverse people, so that we can actually create the diverse workforce of the future. As a smaller business, this also gives us a wider pool of candidates who might not, just like you said, feel comfortable going to some of those other organizations where maybe when they get through the doors, they feel like they don't belong. Hopefully when they come through the doors at NetLogics, they're finding that they're in a place where they're welcomed and they're included and they're part of the process of what moving forward to create a diverse by design workforce. So it's really about what do you do to attract people to know about you, understand you, and feel comfortable reaching out to you. So starting earlier in the process for us has been very successful. We've hired several of our interns. And then we're building on from that. So it's not just interns now, we're actually working with those programs that are graduating students and making sure that we're part of their job pool and interviewing processes when they're starting to have students available graduation, so that we've got more students coming to us from a diverse background. So being intentional about where we go look for people.
Yep.
And then I was also talking to somebody this morning. One of the things that's been incredibly successful for us here at NetLogix has been people transitioning careers. So we're a tech firm, but not every single role we have here at NetLogix requires you to have a coding background. So business analysts, project managers, many of those people can come and be developed into those career paths with transferable skills from other industries. And we've had incredible success with several of the candidates we've had who've been women who took a break from their working career when they were raising children and came back post that with different experiences and the ability to multitask and handle challenging deadlines and get things done. So we've had success in bringing in people from career transition as well. So being open to where you go look for staff will solve that problem. And as I said at the beginning, I think everybody's going to have to start to do that, because there are only so many of those standard looking students graduating from the traditional colleges every year.
Yeah. Well, two great talent development strategies right there for our listeners looking to build more diversity within your team. Mid-career talent. It's so interesting to me. Millennials obviously change jobs very frequently. And so to accept the fact that someone hasn't worked in quote unquote tech, but has other transferable skills that could be applied to our industry. So looking beyond the traditional talent that we're used to finding, and accepting especially mid-career women entering the workforce again. Gosh, what a plethora of talent they've had just because they haven't been in the organizational workforce. They've been in another workforce, which is very challenging. But now entering work again, how do you create a pathway for them to re-enter and feel safe and feel a sense of belonging? So, and then the intern piece, front loading the talent right from the get-go, going to diverse sources. And often when I work with companies, that's the first initiative with diversity. We're going to recruit diverse talent. Yeah. Well, they have to feel like they belong once they get there. So you have to build an inclusive culture while recruiting diverse talent. And so I like what you shared is they're continuing to kind of broaden that pool so that there's very different types of people entering the workforce, mid-career, early career. And you yourself as a diverse leader, that definitely sets the tone for what really matters here, that we're really walking the talk. So Audrey, this has been fascinating. Thanks for sharing all this great information and helping our listeners learn what it will take to achieve gender equality. Help us understand, how can we best connect with you? How can we follow you for those that want to stay in touch?
So I am very accessible. You can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Audrey Taylor, and then on Twitter. And on Twitter, I'm at NetLogix, as opposed to at NetLogix team, which is the entire company. And then I do use Instagram for my personal. So if you're more interested in who I am as a complete person, and at that, I'm Audrey Taylor. So I'm welcome to follow, reach out, connect with me through any of those channels. And I'm always happy to hear from people. And as you said, I participate in a number of organizations here in town. So I'm always happy to connect with people, have coffee, talk about what has worked. And then also, I think one of the things as leaders we need to do a good job of is sharing some of the things that didn't work for us. So having a candid conversation about allowing people to learn the lessons I've learned and make their own mistakes rather than repeat some of the mistakes I've maybe made over the course of 20 years in getting NetLogix to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Leaders modeling that candid conversations are the way we do business. Having that vulnerability and sharing lessons learned for your employees to see you as a human, but also to learn from your story. Yeah,
definitely. We're all trying to do the best we can, but if we're more authentic about it, I think we actually move things forward more quickly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it has been fascinating listening to you today, Audrey. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Julie. As I said, anybody who wants to reach out, I'm here, and I look forward to seeing you again soon, Julie.
Thank you for listening to the Pivot Point podcast and our candid conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share it with a friend or subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us at Next Pivot Point on social media and check out our website for free, amazing resources to support your candid conversation journey. It's www.nextpivotpoint.com. Thank you.